Mike Miller, Herald-Times, columnist Jeremy Price.
We are.
Back in Des Moines.
Still in Des Moines.
Going to stay in Des Moines.
Going to stay in Des Moines.
Going to stay in Des Moines. IU, really, frankly, pretty thorough win over Chattanooga here today. 99-74, the final score from the Wells Fargo Arena. Explosive offense. Really, this was kind of a warning in some ways to the rest of this region that you can talk about your UNCs, your Kentuckys, but Indiana, too, has something to say about where this region's headed over these next couple days.
Yeah, I think this was a big game in a lot of ways. Obviously, you've got to win to advance, but I thought it was important just for Indiana to sort of get its feet underneath it, to sort of get that confidence back, to get that swagger back, the edge back that we saw during most of the Big Ten season and that was missing at the Big Ten tournament. And I thought if they could do that in this game, then they can be a very dangerous team going forward now that, you've got that out of the way, that you don't have to worry about the upset. Anything from here, technically, Indiana's looking at potentially being the underdog in every game that it should play the rest of the way. So just a big night all around to feel a lot better about things.
And I think maybe one of the best things to really feel good about is the way they finished, too, because I think they had, a 9-point lead at halftime, 46-37, and then just came out and rolled in the second half. And this was, not only did they get out to a great start in the second half, they kept their foot on the pedal, and that's something we haven't always seen from this team at times this year. Talking to Troy Williams, he said that they've become really mindful of this really ever since the Purdue game. It's something that they want to focus on, especially tonight against the Chattanooga team that they had the length to cause some problems. They really actually tried to press a little bit, which was still a little bit surprising.
But not very much.
Not very much. Not against this team, not against this Indiana team. They quickly learned that it was not going to be a path to success for them tonight. But this was an Indiana team that absolutely, like I said, kept that foot on the pedal, had that killer instinct, whatever you want to call it. And that bodes well for March, that bodes well for any time of the year, but that especially bodes well for now when you have that kind of end-to-end focus that they had over this final 20 minutes today.
Yeah, killer instinct was definitely what I called it. That's what I wrote about tonight. And funny you should mention Purdue, because that was kind of one of the things asked some of the players afterwards. Did you guys know that Purdue lost, or were you sort of aware of at least that they were going to overtime or whatever? And the news that they lost came as a bit of a surprise, I think, to everybody in that IU locker room. Not that there were any tears shed, I don't think, but it was a little surprising but they also had seen Baylor already lose today, and so they were well aware. They were on guard going into this game, and then they knew coming out for that second half that if you let Chattanooga stick around, it could get dangerous. But if you put them down, then you can kind of take the danger away, and Indiana did that. Chattanooga scored the first basket of the second half, and next thing you know, Indiana's up 17 points, and this game was really never in doubt.
Having seen Chattanooga now, they almost kind of confirmed some of the suspicions that we did have. A team that, like you said, had that defensive length, but really no other areas where they were absolutely excellent. IU's obviously seen some longer teams in the Big Ten and around the schedule this year, but again, Chattanooga never really had that extra go-to thing, whether it was perimeter shooting. Granted, they got to the rim a lot. There was some defensive lapses, some coverages that didn't connect defensively for Indiana, but there was just never. It wasn't thorough enough. It wasn't consistent enough, and beyond that, there just really wasn't anything else that kept Chattanooga from falling down. And coupled with Indiana's insistence on keeping that foot on the gas pedal, this is what you got.
Yeah, it was just a matter of if Indiana was going to get some defensive stops and not necessarily lock down defensively, but just lock down for a few possessions here and there, because there was no doubt that Indiana was going to score. I mean, it was quickly apparent early in this game that if Indiana didn't turn the ball over, they were going to score. Chattanooga's press wasn't terribly effective if it wasn't causing turnovers, and their half-court defense wasn't much better, frankly. And that's not really a surprise. I mean, we've seen this Indiana offense clicking on all cylinders against a lot of different teams this year. We've seen that explosiveness. But Indiana got that defense they needed. It wasn't stellar, but it was good enough, and it was good enough to give the offense time to stretch things out in this game.
Absolutely. Talking about explosiveness, probably should have just led with OG Anunoby. Another game to remember for OG Anunoby. Career high 14 points, but really the two that people are talking about were the two dunks. The 360 that came off a steal around midcourt, and he drove the baseline and had a pretty violent one-handed jam, twisting himself and throwing it down.
One dribble, one hand.
Yeah, it was...
just like I do on the Nerf hoop.
Colin Hartman was saying he was speechless. He was just standing there. He said, OG has an explosiveness unknown to man, which I'm not going to argue with at this point. I really am not. And it was funny, too, because, talking with Troy Williams, obviously they see all this from OG in practice. We've seen it all year long, too. But really, what it all means is that they're not so one-dimensional with this kind of athletic explosiveness anymore. You don't just have to rely on Troy Williams to be the good Troy Williams and have those explosive moments. Now you have two guys who are kind of capable of taking that to that next level of athleticism and explosiveness.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, these guys have seen OG do this kind of stuff all the time in practice. And, Max Bielfeldt was asked if he was surprised. He said, well, a normal person, yeah, you would be surprised, but not with OG.
No.
OG's not a normal person, basically. Something that everybody else would think twice before doing, OG just does so easily. And I think you had the quote that OG himself was just kind of like,
it just happened.
It just happened.
What are you talking about?
Must be nice to have that kind of thing just happen.
He's hilarious. He comes in, they bring him out for the podium stuff for all the media, and then they bring him back in the locker room. I was kind of standing over by his locker, just wanted to talk to him. And he's just so uninterested. I don't know the right word to really sum up his, he just doesn't seek the spotlight. He's not comfortable talking about himself. He goes, and there's obviously a horde of folks, including myself, standing by his locker, and he just sits down in his stall, reaches in his backpack, pulls out a Jolly Rancher, just starts sucking on the candy, and just sits there and just stares up, waiting for us to fire away. That's just kind of how he's settling in, though. It kind of shows him he's getting a little comfortable. He's kind of showing himself a little more, and we're seeing that both, especially on the court too. And we talk about the things that the explosiveness, the things that make OG who he is. Yogi Ferrell too. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about him. Absolutely impressive performance. Kind of the thing. It was what we expected to see from Yogi Ferrell, a hungry player, to go out with a little more this season, with a run through this tournament. 20 points, 10 assists, first career double-double, which
that's amazing.
I still don't believe that.
First career double-double. Yeah, he's had the double-digit assist before, but he's had quiet scoring games when that happens, and then he's had the big scoring games. And I think he's had 8 or 9 assists in those kind of games, but never the double-double. So, I thought Yogi, especially in the second half, was fantastic and was kind of the ringleader in terms of having that killer instinct and putting this game away. That he didn't want to mess around. He's got something to do in this tournament, and that's sort of the feel you get with this whole team that this is what they've been pointing to all year long, and they weren't about to let down in this first game, and they're going to get the matchup we all kind of expected in game number 2.
Here's where it gets fun. This is going to be a wild couple days here in Des Moines. That was the final buzzer. No, I think the game's still going on. But Kentucky's about to wrap this one up. It's going to be IU-Kentucky Saturday. We don't have a time just yet. That'll be announced later.
Prime time, you can bet.
But it's back on.
Yes.
It's back on.
First time since 2012.
Haven't played a scheduled game since 2011. We all remember that.
Yeah, December of 2011, and then the Sweet 16 meeting later that season, March of 2012.
All eyes are on Christian Watford. He said he was going to be here.
Yeah.
We'll see when he gets here.
So none of the players for Indiana and Kentucky have ever played vice versa.
Amazing it's gotten to this point, but it is what it is. You were feeling kind of good about this matchup. We were talking about this the other day driving out here. It's tough, and Kentucky's one of the favorites in this region, but again, this Indiana team that we saw tonight, the best version of Indiana, they can play with Kentucky. They can play with just about anybody. Yeah,
I think so. I thought, the difficult part would be getting through Chattanooga, and I thought if Indiana could get through Chattanooga, I'm actually probably just dumb enough to think that Indiana's fully capable of beating this Kentucky team, and it's a talented Kentucky team and an improving Kentucky team. But I think that if Indiana's clicking on all cylinders and just sort of relaxes and plays its game, I think it definitely has the firepower to keep up with Kentucky. And Kentucky has plenty of firepower of its own. Who's going to get stops and how and where, it's always funny when you break these things down, but you think back to that 2011 game, when you broke it down, it was how is Indiana going to defend against Anthony Davis or Marcus Teague or whatever. And you looked at the matchups and they didn't really favor IU, but you looked at the team game that Indiana played and how they spread the floor around. And even in that Sweet 16 game, that was one of the most entertaining, best college basketball games I think I've ever seen. Both teams just executing at a high level offensively. And so I really expect more of the same on Saturday.
It's going to be really, really fun. I cannot wait for this game. I am super pumped. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is what this is all about.
Kind of makes up for the IU-Purdue game we didn't get at the Big Ten tournament last week.
Went up there.
And then some.
And then some, of course. Well, I guess that'll probably do it for us here today, although we should probably mention, too, basically as close to full health as they've been in the last month, too, heading into this game. Robert Johnson coming back, shaking off whatever rust, 7.6 rebounds.
Looked really good out there.
Looked a lot better than I thought he would for
Yeah.
not having played since February 20th. So he's back. Colin Hartman still kind of working his way back with the wrist. He's as a lot of athletes are wont to do. He was insistent that he was uninhibited by the wrist at all. He had a kind of bulky pad type wrap on his right wrist. At one point, he passed up a layup, he was right there.
Inexplicably passed up a layup. He did attempt 1-3 that was way off the mark, but then he hit a little jumper in the lane and with the right hand, and dribbling wise, rebounding wise, all those things, he looked fine.
All the hustle, he's still making the hustle plays, so you're still going to get that kind of Colin Hartman. So you get that, you get Rob Johnson back, you're back just about to full strength. Jawan Morgan continues to play through his shoulder deal.
Played well again, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this team is equipped to handle Kentucky. They're equipped to, especially coming off this kind of game, equipped to kind of spin this forward and see what they can do. We'll be here again tomorrow. We'll check in after.
We'll dive more into that Kentucky.
We will dive a lot
tomorrow.
more into it tomorrow. But we're just signing off here after a really thorough, convincing win, a win that serves notice to the rest of this region. Indiana's for real. This could get real. This could get real fast. It's a really awkward way to end.
Really?
It's so stupid. I don't know. We'll talk to you tomorrow, guys. See ya.